Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, I had the pleasure or the frustration, however you may see it, of watching the film from the Vikings game. And tonight we're going to put a bow on that loss. This one stings. I'm not going to lie to you. It's Wednesday and I'm still steaming like Willie Beeman over the loss. And watching the film didn't make it any better. All it did was pour salt in a wound that was still open, still fresh, and had not healed yet. And I must say, this team never ceases to amaze me in the amount of mistakes that it makes in order to lose a football game. In the same breath, when I watch the film, I also see a team that's, dare I say it, close. I feel this way quite often after watching the film. There's a different perspective that the film brings, which is why I always implore you guys to watch it. Whether you watch it with me or not is not the issue. Like, just watch it. It helps if you know what you're looking for, you know. You have to take everything you watch with a grain of salt because there's certain things we just aren't privy to. We don't know whose responsibility is what. You can only assume. But nonetheless, there was one thing that, and there were so many little things, like, before I get to the overarching theme from the game, there's so many little things that people don't, bring to the table when talking about a loss or just the team in general. Because when you win, you sweep some of this stuff under the rug. You don't bring it up because you won, you're excited, so you don't want to rain on your parade. But there's certain little things that need to be done when you play winning football. I'll give you a couple of examples that really irked my nerves watching the film. So you guys remember this play very vividly, more likely than not, because I know I brought it up in the MOBB, so I can't speak for some of you. But early in the ball game, Washington's defense gets a stop. As a matter of fact, it's the second possession of the game defensively. Remember, the first possession for the Vikings offensively, they march it right down the field. Justin Jefferson has 4 catches for 48 yards, one of which is a touchdown. They make it look easy. They convert on third downs. TJ Hockenson has a catch or 2 on that first possession, and they score. And you're thinking, I can't speak for you. I'm thinking, shit, here we go. Second possession, the offense moves it. And if you've watched film with me, I talk about the vortex. And you know what area of the field that I'm referring to? I call it the vortex. Well, we got in the vortex. And we punted like we always do. But Trustway, because we end up in that vortex so often, is able to pin them deep in their own territory. They start at their own 10. Well, they proceed to go backwards from there. We are able to get a stop. Deron Payne gets a sack on third down. They have to punt. Their punter is essentially a yard away from the back end line. He's 6 yards deep in his end zone. He kicks it. Dax Milne catches it and returns it to the Vikings 45-yard line. Except we have a penalty, which pushes us back to our own 35-yard line. Understand that is 20 yards of field position and hidden yards that you don't talk about. You just see, one penalty, 10 yards. That cost us 20 yards of field position. We should have been snapping the football in plus territory at the Vikings 45-yard line. Instead, we're snapping the football at the Washington 35-yard line. The first play after that penalty is a Curtis Samuel's 16-yard run right up the gut, up the teeth of the defense. If you get that same run from the 45-yard line of the Vikings. You're then at the Vikings 29-yard line, and no matter what happens after that, you're in field goal range. In a game that you lose by 3 points, just think about a scenario like that. You don't even have to get a first down if you start the possession at the Vikings 35-yard line or 45-yard line, excuse me. You get 8 yards and it's 4th and 2. Rivera's got a decision to make, because if you get 8 yards, you're at the 37. That's a 54-yard field goal. Joey Sly is capable of making a 54-yard field goal. You could go for it, or you could kick the field goal. He probably would go for it, but that's nor here nor there. We weren't put in that position because we had a holding penalty that negated the field position that we were supposed to have. That's 20 yards of hidden yardage that nobody talks about. I'll give you another example. We punt the football. We get caught in the vortex again, that sweet spot that we always get caught in, and our drives go to die. Trustway does a magnificent job of having the football hit, backspin. It dies at the 2. It kicks back to the 5. It's literally backspinning from the 2 to the 5. And Percy Butler decides at the 5-yard line, running 21 miles an hour, I'm going to jump up and grab the football and try to stop myself from running. After running 21 miles an hour, I'm going to try to put on the brakes and not go in the end zone while holding the football. Where's the psychological sense in that? You need to wash your face and get your damn mind right. Seems like every game or every other game, we get one of these guys overzealous. It's always one of the young fellas. It's usually Percy Butler being over aggressive unnecessarily. Again, I don't know what's stated in these contracts. These guys act as if for every ball that they down inside the 10, there's an XYZ bonus. Every ball down inside the 5, it's an XYZ bonus. In my mind, I'm thinking if you get a certain amount for the entire year, there's a bonus waiting for you. I don't think there's an individual bonus for each one, but they act as if it is. Because every time guys run down there, they want to be the one to touch the football. They got to be the one. If he just runs by that football, doesn't touch it at all, it's going to be downed at the 5-yard line. By itself, it probably will die. If not, it'll kick up, go to the 7. Somebody will grab it before it goes any further than that. Either way, Tressway had those bastards inside their own 10-yard line. More likely than not, inside their own 5. Percy Butler takes the ball into the end zone. While he's in the end zone, then realizes, oh shit, hot potato, I got the football. I probably shouldn't have it. And I'm about to go into the end zone. It's too late. Ball kicks into the end zone. It's a touchback. That's dodo football. Instead of the Vikings starting that possession inside their own 5 or 10-yard line, they're out to the 20. Now they get a first down, and then they get another 6 or 7 yards, and then they punt. But guess what? Had they done the exact same thing from the 5, who knows? First of all, who knows? Your play calling changes when you're at the 5 versus at the 20. Who knows if they even get a first down? Okay, they may be content with running it once, throwing it twice, 2 safe throws. One's incomplete, one short of the sticks, and they got a punt. Who knows? Sack, force, fumble, end zone, touchdown, ball gets batted in the air, picked off, touch. Who knows what happens? Anything can happen when you're backed up against your own end zone. Whatever the case may be, they were at the 20. We never got to find out. They picked up a first down, picked up a few more yards, then they punted, flipped the field position. Instead of them punting from deep in their own territory, they flipped it, pinned us at our own 10-yard line. Made us have to go the length of the field. Of course, we weren't able to do it. These are just little small nuances that go unnoticed by the untrained eye. But more field position yardage lost because we didn't do the little things, right? But enough of that. I did all of that in the film breakdown. Here was the biggest takeaway from the film. The number one reason we lost this game, a lot of you came out of this thing screaming, Scott Turner, Scott Turner, Scott Turner. He's awful. He's awful. He's awful. We have to get rid of him. This guy sucks. He's killing us. We can't do anything because Scott Turner sucks. And you're not wrong about a lot of that. But Scott Turner wasn't the number one reason we lost this game. If you watch the film, the number one reason we lost this game was Taylor Heinecke. He was awful in this game. Absolutely putrid. He was indecisive. He was unsure of himself. He refused to come to the check down. He was a guy that took sacks that didn't need to be taken. He forced the football in situations where it didn't need to be forced. And he turned down opportunities to get the football to open receivers constantly throughout this game. And again, if you don't like what you see, there are outlets. And he chose to turn down getting the football in the flats to Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson repeatedly for massive gains, or at least opportunities for massive gains with one-on-one matchups with one defender on the outside. You got to make a decision. Either you're going to cut it loose, pull the trigger, and let it fly, or you're going to check it down, but you cannot hold on to the football. He repeatedly did that in this game, and either it resulted in a sack, a missed opportunity, or him throwing the football out of bounds. Either way, this offense stayed stagnant and was disjointed because Taylor Heinecke played one of his worst games of his career. This is what I watched from him in this game on film. Rivals the Denver game from last year, the Kansas City game from last year, the New Orleans game from last year. Some of his worst performances in a Washington uniform. This is right up there with them. He was indecisive on whether to run, leave the pocket, stay, try to make a play. He didn't know what he wanted to do. He refused to get the ball to the check down, and he turned down opportunities to throw the football deep. There were opportunities throughout this game. Guys open. He's looking at them. He doesn't throw it. John Bates runs a simple 5-yard stop route right over the football. It's one of those plays where you draw it up and you say, hey, we're looking for 4 or 5 yards here. It's the exact same thing as a 4-yard run on first down. We got Bates sitting down, middle of the football field, uncovered, throwing the football. I don't want to. I want to throw it to Curtis Samuel, but he's not open. Come off of Curtis. You've got John Bates sitting in front of you. Please throw him the football. Not going to do it. Okay, what are you going to do? I'm either going to throw it away or I'm going to take a sack. Those weren't options on the play. You got a wide open receiver right in front of you. Just pick one, throw it to him. This is repeatedly happening throughout the game. Antonio Gibson leaks into the flats. You got Terry McLaurin one-on-one behind a defender. Cut it loose. You got De'Ami Brown running a deep post. Cut it loose. Safety's over the top by 5 yards. Throw it across the field. That safety doesn't stand a chance. If you're not going to throw it to De'Ami, who's your first read, you're not going to throw it to Terry, who's your second read, and he's open as well. You got Brian Robinson out in the flats, wide open, with about 6 to 7 yards of space between he and the nearest defender. Check it down. It's 1st and 10. Give us a play to kick this drive off. It's 17-17. The momentum has shifted, and Scott Turner dialed up a play for you to give us the momentum back, and you refuse to cut the football loose. What is your problem? What are you doing? What are you looking at? What are you seeing? Do you have a mental block? Because if you're going to turn down De'Ami, if you're going to turn down Terry, you must check it down to Brian Robinson and get us some positive yards on 1st and 10. What you can't do is tell Brian Robinson, you run deep, go, roll out to your right, and then throw the football out of bounds and make it 2nd and 10. That's what you can't do. But that's what he did. There were several opportunities Curtis Samuel on a third down, and I'll say it was maybe 6. He's got Curtis Samuel running across the field on a shallow cross, and then he's got Logan Thomas on a late delay out into the flats. If I'm not mistaken, I could have my plays mixed up. Could be just the running back out into the flats. Either way, you got Curtis Samuel, who, if you throw it to him, is going to be tackled immediately, which he did, and he did get tackled immediately, and he's going to be short of the first down. Or you could throw it to the tight end or running back, and I can't remember which is which. I think it was actually a running back. Could have been Logan Thomas. But you got a running back or a tight end out in the flats, probably 6 yards away from Curtis Samuel. Nearest defender is probably right around the sticks. One-on-one, you get it to that guy, he's going to have a chance to get the first down. You get it to Curtis Samuel, there's no way he's getting the first down. And he throws it to Curtis Samuel. And he gets tackled immediately, and we're short. We got a punt. These are the things that frustrate me to no end, because there were so many opportunities. Drives didn't have to die in this game. Sacks didn't have to be taken. Opportunities didn't have to be missed. This is the same guy that threw it into triple coverage to Curtis Samuel, but then late in the game, after he's thrown a pick and you're looking for redemption, and Scott Turner dials up a play that gives you an opportunity. You got 2 guys one-on-one down the field, and you got a wide open check down in the flats, and he refuses to take any of them. I can't for the life of me understand. The protection on that particular snap was pristine. He had about 7 seconds to throw the football, and he turned everything down, runs out to the right, tells his only outlet, hey, go down the field, and then proceeds to throw it out of bounds. I'm at a loss. There's a play where he's got Antonio Gibson, and this was a theme throughout the game. Gibson wide open in the flats. Give him an opportunity, one-on-one with the defender. I like my chances. Throw it to him. He doesn't throw it to him. There's a play where Antonio Gibson leaks late out into the flats. There's only one defender. It's a corner out there. And Heinecke doesn't like what he sees around the field. There was an open receiver, but he wasn't working that side of the field. So he realizes, all right, there's pressure now. I need to get out of here. Immediately, he goes to run instead of just trusting his outlet. I expect this type of shit from Carson Wentz. This type of performance I expect from Carson Wentz. Doesn't really know the offense through and through. Doesn't know where all of his outlets are at this current juncture. Only been in the offense a few months. I expect Carson Wentz to panic, run into a sack, not get it to the check down. These are things that we've known Wentz to do throughout his career, but also he's in a new offense, so that adds another layer. I don't expect this shit from a guy that's been in this offense for 6 years, that knows where the outlets are. Knows here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, check down. You don't like what you see from 1, 2, or 3, and there's pressure. You don't have to run. Antonio Gibson's out here in the flats. Just get it to him. So he tries to run, and the Vikings shut that shit down, and he's about to get sacked, and all of a sudden he says, oh, there's Antonio Gibson. I'm going to throw it to him. And he tries to get it to him, doesn't have enough on it. It skips to him, is incomplete. He had all the space in the world to operate. It's the same shit he did against the Colts, except he got to Antonio Gibson immediately, threw it to him in the flats, and Gibson is running down the sidelines. How many times did we see against the Colts? He threw it to Antonio Gibson in the flats, and Antonio Gibson is running, and he's running, and he's running. And you're like, damn, that's a big-ass gain. There's nobody out there. It was like that in this game multiple times. Remember the touchdown from Antonio Gibson against the Colts? Leaks out into the flats. He gets it to him immediately. He runs to the corner of the end zone to the pylon, beats 2 defenders, touchdown. He had opportunities like that throughout this game, not just to the running backs, but to the tight ends, and he's turning it down. In favor of what? A sack or an incompletion or a throwaway. And you're asking yourself, what are you doing, guy? He was terrible in this game. I was so frustrated watching this thing over again because there were so many opportunities. We did not have to punt as often as we did in this game. I thought, and I told you guys this before the game, I said, I think our offense will have opportunities against this Vikings defense. I'm not impressed. And we got into the vortex at least 5 times in this game and punted, and we shouldn't have had to punt because there were opportunities to convert over and over. The Vikings didn't do anything special. They gave us the same looks on defense over and over again, and Taylor Heinecke failed to take advantage of opportunities, whether it's in the flats, down the field, or right in front of his face. He refused to give guys an opportunity. John Bates was open at least 3 or 4 times. I make fun of John Bates all the time. It's John Bates. Don't throw him the football. If he's open, throw him the damn football. I'm crying about the tight ends not getting more opportunities. They need to touch it more. They were open. There were opportunities. Amani Rogers should have had at least 1 more catch. Bates should have had 3 more catches. And Logan Thomas should have had 2 catches. These are all plays that are incompletions, by the way. It's not like somebody else got the football. On some of these batted balls that we saw, one was frustrating because Curtis Samuel was wide open in the red zone. Would have been a first down and 10 at like the 15-yard line, and it got batted down. I'm upset with the offensive line for that. Got to put a body on a guy that's not rushing, that's looking to bat the football down. But on a couple of these batted balls that he was trying to force to Terry, the shit wasn't open. And it was either going to be knocked down as a PBU or batted in the air and then picked the hell off. These weren't smart throws when you got other guys sitting right there open. Heinecke was the single biggest reason we lost this football game. That's not including the interception. Obviously, the interception was one of the biggest plays of the game. That's on the surface. I'm talking about watching the game and watching all of the yards left on the field, all of the opportunities left on the field. That was courtesy of number 4. He was downright awful in this game. I was disgusted with his performance. Heinecke was the number 1 reason we lost. And then a distant number 2 is the combination of Scott Turner and Ron Rivera. They're a distant number 2. For all of the bullshit that they did in the game, and we all know about the bullshit that both Scott Turner and Ron Rivera did in their hand that they had in their part in losing this game. For all of that, it pales in comparison to how much was left on the field due to Taylor Heinecke's indecisiveness, poor reads, coupled with bad decisions, and the inability to pull the trigger or just make a decision. If it's not there, run. If it's not there, check it down. Man, you got Terry over the top, one-on-one with a defender. You're staring at him down the field. Why aren't you throwing it? Why are you double clutching? Cut it loose. De'Ami Brown got the safety over the top, but you got all this field to work with across the field. Throw it across the field. That safety can't get there. It's too high. He wouldn't throw it. He was scared. There's no doubt in my mind that when Carson Wentz is healthy, he's going back in. You have no choice to watch, but to watch that film and feel like he didn't give us a chance. They're not going to say it, but he didn't give us a chance to win the game. Watching that game and watching the film, honestly speaking, I can't say this definitively, but I'm going to say it anyway. Game, it shouldn't have been close. We shouldn't have been up 17-7. We should have been up 27-7. We should have been dominating the Minnesota Vikings. Our defense deserved a dominant performance. They deserved to be up big, not clinging to a 10-point lead. They deserved to be up big with the way that they were playing. It's funny because Vikings fans swear up and down, oh, we should have blown y'all out. Y'all lucky the officials helped y'all out. To hell with that one play. We should have been marching up and down the field on your ass. It was evident why they couldn't get anything going off offensively. Our D-line was dominating their offensive line. And Jonathan Allen, Kirk Cousins got hit 11 times. We had 4 different tackles for loss in the game. I mean, we had more than that. We had like 7. Hell, Deron Payne had 4 by himself. The defense was dominant, especially the D-line. I mean, they saw exactly why they couldn't get it going offensively. There was no excuse for us. Yep, Heinecke got hit. He didn't have to get hit. There was a difference. There were maybe 1 or 2 plays where, damn, okay, he just got beat, and Heinecke didn't even have a chance to respond. But a lot of the pressure, a lot of the hits, and like one of the sacks, 1 or 2 of the sacks, you're like, Heinecke, dude, you didn't have to do that. You have to take that sack. You didn't have to take that. What are you doing? Heinecke played scared in that game. He played like he was trying not to lose instead of playing to win. And that's the problem with Heinecke, is he doesn't play the same way when he's up like he does when he's trailing or we got to have it. That's when he plays with that level of desperation that we all know and love. We saw it against the Falcons. We saw it against the Giants. We saw it against the Colts when the game was like, you don't get that until, I got no other recourse. If Washington's winning or it's close, he plays scared. A lot of times he plays scared and close to the vest. And look, he made the mistake. And that's part of the reason why he probably does it. Because look at what he did when we were down, when we were up 17-10. Got an open receiver, and he makes that crucial back-breaking mistake. And I think at times he plays like he doesn't want to make that mistake. Well, I'd rather you play willing to make that mistake than to play the way you did tentatively and scared in this game and cost us opportunities. I'd rather just have the interceptions with you trying to make a play and have you trying to run around and make things happen than you just standing in the pocket, taking sacks, turning down, check down opportunities, and not getting the football to the playmakers out in space. Because that's torture, watching us have to punt in situations where we should be able to convert 3rd downs. Or 2nd down should be an 8-yard gain, setting up a 3rd and 2 or 3. Instead, we're 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 11. That was frustrating. Big time. But, all right, I'm ready to turn the page. I've lamented enough about that loss. We got a big one on Monday night. There's so much going on with this team. So, as always, let's transition into in other news, where we find ourselves talking about the Commanders yet again in the news. I want to start with some good news. I want to eat my dessert first. We'll get to the vegetables here in a second. This is really happening, guys. I did not think I would see this in my lifetime. I'm not going to lie to you. Daniel Snyder is like 54 years old or something like that. And a lot of times these owners with all this bread, these dudes live to like 100. Really like 80, 85, 90. And depending on what your genes are, you're Al Davis, you'd live to you're like 90 something. I didn't know if I would ever see this opportunity come, that we would have an opportunity to get our team back. And this thing is happening, guys. This shit is really happening. Like, I've been so reserved. I've been trying to like play it cool and like, yeah, okay, whatever. This shit is happening, man. We're getting our team back. This shit is exciting. Like, as frustrating as this season is probably going to be, we're clearly not what I thought we were going to be before the season started. And, despite the little 3-game win streak that we had, I don't know where this season is going to head. And I'm rooting for it to still be a semblance of a season and have an opportunity to play bonus football and all that good stuff. But look, at the end of the day, all of that shit pales in comparison to just getting the organization back to where it needs to be, which is out of the hands of the Snyders and into the hands of someone else. I really don't care if they're competent or not at this point. Somebody else. They can't be any worse than the Snyders. I'm willing to try anything. So we've heard a bunch of names bandied about. The names that keep coming up in particular are Jeff Bezos and Jay-Z and them starting a group. Now, whether that group is just the two of them or they're looking to bring on some more minority partners. We've heard Matthew McConaughey's name pop up. We know he's a Washington super fan. He already expressed interest. KD has said, hey, I would love to be a partner in the group that buys Washington in the franchise. I'm waiting for Dale Earnhardt Jr. to throw his name in. You know, he's a big fan of the team, and I'm waiting for him to say, hey, I'd do it too. Sign me up. You know, I don't know where this thing is going, but I know wherever it's going, it starts with Bezos and Jay-Z, right? Those are the two big names. Those are the two big moguls that are out there. And if they join together and create a super team, there's no amount of money that's not feasible for those two to be able to get to. Now, could Daniel Snyder be petty and say, I don't want to sell it to Jeff Bezos? Sure, he could. But can you turn down? We're not talking about a couple thousand, not a couple 100,000. We're not even talking about millions. We're talking about billions of dollars. Can you turn down $1.5 billion? The next closest bidder is at 5.5, and Bezos and company are offering 7. Can you turn that down? Are you really in a position to be petty enough to turn down $1.5 billion because he had some things in the Washington Post that he might have spearheaded? He owns the company. Are you really that shallow? I don't think so. One thing about, I've talked about this, one thing about billionaires and millionaires is they love their money and they'll put their ego aside for some bread, right? Anyway, word out on the street. Remember when TMZ was no better than the National Enquirer, right? When you're standing in line about to buy your now and laters, you know, your bag of Skittles, and you look over and it says, Tupac's not dead, spotted in the Bahamas, and you look at it, you're like, that shit is stupid, right? Princess Diana, you know, the whole story. You know, you see that shit and you're just like, what a waste of paper, right? Remember when TMZ was on that level where you just like, okay, shit's TMZ. All right, I need a reputable, you know, outlet to tell me the same shit TMZ just told me so I can believe it. Remember that? Ever since the Kobe Bryant death and TMZ having it first and having pictures and all of the shit that they did during that whole ordeal, ever since then, they've been the most reputable source on the streets. When some shit happens, hey, did TMZ confirm that? Is that from TMZ? Okay, yeah, that shit's legit. TMZ's paying top dollar for everything. They're paparazzis everywhere. They got tentacles everywhere. So when TMZ says, hey, Bezos and Jay-Z had a secret dinner, which wasn't secret shit, you got pictures. 2-hour dinner meeting. This shit is about to go down. Like, these boys ain't playing. They already mapping out a way to make it happen. Getting excited. I can't believe this is happening. I still, something in the back of my mind is like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. This isn't real. They're trying to pull the wool over my eyes one final time so they can laugh at me and point and say, ha ha, I got you. But I don't think that's happening this time. Jay Glazer was on the NFL pregame show on Fox, and he's like, yo, they're selling the whole enchilada, the whole shebang, all of it. They're selling the whole thing. This ain't no minority ploy here, right? To get more minority owners on board so that they can afford to buy a stadium. No, they're selling this thing. This is happening. You know, the Jerry Jones thing created a little bit of doubt. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm telling you, my mind is all over the place because I'm like, I want to believe they're selling, but I'm like, in the back of my mind, you trying to get me. And Jerry Jones, who probably is as close to Daniel Snyder in terms of owners as any of these owners out here. And I don't think their relationship is all that close at all. But if anybody would have any working knowledge of what the hell Daniel Snyder may be thinking in his mind, it's Jerry Jones. And when he goes on his radio program and he says, well, I'm more along the lines to thinking that he's looking for some minority owners. Building a stadium isn't cheap. I'm like, that's what I was afraid of. But that ain't what I'm hearing. That ain't what everybody else saying. People who know, people who do this shit for a living, that ain't what they saying. We getting rid of this bastard, man. This shit. But just when you thought it was safe to come out and get excited, we got some more shit, man. So let's jump into this other shit. So today we get a little tweet, right? Scott Abram of Channel 7 and a bunch of other people started shooting out these messages from the AG and the Attorney General, Carl A. Racine, who apparently is on his way out. Okay, we got these elections. He's probably not going to be the Attorney General anymore. There'll be a new person in there running the show. And so on his way out potentially, and I don't know if that's the case or not, he's like, hey, I got some shit I got to get off my chest. Okay. So apparently we've got a major press conference with a major announcement regarding the Washington Commanders organization. And I'm thinking, are they going to announce that, hey, if the Snyder sell, we're willing to potentially build a stadium down at the RFK site? That's not the job of an attorney general. He doesn't have any jurisdiction to be talking about that kind of stuff. No. I'm like, well, there were some investigations that we learned of last week regarding the books and some, improper funds and things of that nature, some bookkeeping that wasn't up to par. And so some improprieties that we heard about financially. I wonder if they have anything to do with that. Whatever the case may be, your mind is allowed to wander. You're allowed to speculate, or as I like to call it, draw inferences. So Washington's spokesperson, or one of them, gets a hold of the information, and this is what these geniuses decide to put out. Now, they haven't done anything stupid in about 2 months, okay? And we could argue and go back and forth as to what constitutes stupid, okay? Kevin Sheehan, and I haven't listened to his podcast in a minute, but one of the funny things that he says, and it's true, with this particular organization, and it's funny because if you've ever worked in an environment like this, you know exactly what he's referring to. I'm not an Office guy. I've never watched the show The Office, so I don't know what he's particularly talking about with regards to that show. However, I've worked in a warehouse. I've worked in major department stores, or not department stores, but rather big box stores in my past life. And in these facilities, there are signs that say last major accident, and then you write the date. And if there haven't been an accident in 10 days, it's 10, then it's 11. And you just keep going and keep going. And he said, when they would mess up something like I think it was the last time he was talking, or the last time I was listening, this shows you I haven't been listening in a while. He was talking about the 90 greatest Redskins and how they were adding names to the list. And they had left out Trent Williams being petty. And, there were other guys that, weren't on the list that should have been. And then they ultimately added those guys in after a little bit of outward pressure from fans, things of that nature. And so he's like, every time you want to say, okay, they're doing good, you erase it and you start over and you put 0. Well, today you erase however long you felt like they had been behaving themselves. 30 days, 60 days, 45 days. For some of you, 5 days. Erase that number, make it 0. Okay. This statement right here takes me back to the days of Bruce Allen. Like, this is next level mishandlement right here, right? This is buffoonery at its highest degree, because you've got a player that has nothing to do with this situation catching strays on your behalf, I may add. Like, you literally took Brian Robinson, you're being shot at, and you put him in front of you, and you've got him taking shots. For what? This reeks of desperation. This reeks of someone that knows some shit's coming out tomorrow that's really going to make them look bad, and you're trying to get in front of it, except you're throwing somebody else out in front of it. Again, you know Washington's famous for, hey, don't look over here. This is where all the shit is. Pay attention to this. Hey, distraction. Woo-hoo. Don't look over here. Look over here. Let's read this bullshit that they put out. I can't believe they had the audacity to put this out as if they were doing themselves a favor by putting this shit out. Less than 3 months ago, a 23-year-old player on our team was shot multiple times in broad daylight. They're talking about Brian Robinson Jr., for those of you having a hard time keeping up. Despite the out-of-control violent crime in D.C., today the Washington Commanders learned for the first time on Twitter that the D.C. General Attorney will be holding a press conference to make a major announcement related to the organization tomorrow. So let's stop right there. You drug Brian Robinson into this discussion, talked about the out-of-control violence in D.C., all only to bring it full circle to talk about an announcement that's being made about the team. What does Brian Robinson and him getting shot and the out-of-control violence in the city have to do with them making an announcement about you? Like, I tell the youth of America all the time, own your shit, right? Like, don't, like, you know, growing up with siblings, the worst thing that you could do was be a snitch and start bringing up shit that doesn't have anything to do with one of the others just to try to get yourself out of something. You know, you get in trouble, you get a conduct notice, you got to get it signed. They called the house already. Your mom already knows. She's waiting on your ass when you get home. You know you're in some trouble. And you say, well, she stayed out until 12 o'clock last night and snuck in and came through the back stairwell. You didn't say anything to her. Whoa, what? And she's looking like, you mother. Like, we don't do that around here, okay? We don't take somebody else's shit and bring it up and throw it into the mix just to take attention off of us. You're in hot water, sit in your hot water, okay? That's bullshit to bring in Brian Robinson. He got nothing to do with this. Nothing. The violent crime in D.C. has nothing to do with the shit you're doing in your organization. That's a totally separate issue. Has nothing to do with this. Why are you bringing that up? That's as low rent as it gets. That's like not wanting to pay Scott McLuhan, so you talk about him being a knockdown, drag-out drunk. And you're like, bro, you ain't got to bring up that man's alcoholism just because you don't want to pay him. He's doing a cruddy job. Let that be the reason why you don't want to pay him. Don't bring up the fact that he's a raging alcoholic. We don't need to talk about that shit. But that's the shit this organization does. That's what this reminds me of. Some Bruce Allen shit. This is ridiculous. The Commanders have fully cooperated with the AG's investigation for nearly a year. As recently as Monday, a lawyer for the team met with the AG, who did not suggest at the time that he intended to take any further action, and in fact revealed fundamental misunderstandings of underlying facts. It is unfortunate that in his final days in office, Mr. Racine appears more interested in making splashy headlines based on offbeat legal theories rather than doing the hard work of making the streets safe for our citizens and including bringing to justice the people who shot one of our players. Un-effing believable. This sounds like some politician shit. This is the shit I see on TV 2 months, a month, 2 weeks, a week before an election, where they start dragging all kinds of shit out of closets, all kinds of skeletons and bringing up shit. You're like, okay, what does this commercial have to do with why I shouldn't vote for Abigail Spanberger? Why do I need to know this again? What is this going on with Yesley Vega? Like, what is this now? What am I watching? Like, sometimes these commercials, they try to cram so much shit into it in like 30 seconds to a minute that it doesn't even make sense. That's what this statement is to me. You try to cram so much bullshit in here, and you're over here trying to do the hocus pocus trick. They don't pay attention to this. Look over here. That this shit doesn't even make sense. What does Brian Robinson have to do with this? Or the people that shot him? We're talking about your organization, your misconduct, your shortcomings. We're not talking about anything else. This organization never ceases to. This is why they have to go. This is why the Snyders have to go. All their lawyers, all of their bullshit, all of the things that are attached and associated with them that brings this organization crippling down to its knees as a fan, they all have to go. This kind of a statement that's issued on behalf of the organization by a team spokesman, his ass needs to be gone today. This is why the Snyders have to go. They can't collect $200. They can't pass go. They just need to be gone. I can't, man. This shit is just ridiculous. So we'll be getting a major announcement tomorrow. Stay tuned. Don't know what it is. I'm going to guess it has something to do with these financial improprieties that we heard about last week when we heard about a new investigation. They found something. They're ready to dump on these boys. I'm telling you, Snyder is no dummy. That's part of the reason he decided it's time to go. Something spooked him. He didn't just decide now all of this. It's like it's like the Redskins name. He didn't just all of a sudden grow a conscience and say, you know what? Really, everyone's dumping on us. Everyone's been dumping on us. Maybe we should think about changing the name. No. He got spooked. All of his advertisers at one time, all of the endorsements that were there, all of the shit that he needed money-wise, financially, they all came to him at once and said, if you don't change this shit, we are out. He had no choice. He was backed into a corner. I feel like him selling now, all of a sudden, having a change of heart and wanting to get rid of the team all of a sudden, isn't just he had a change of heart. Something's pushing him. I think this announcement that's coming is part of what's pushing him out. That's just my guess. But we'll see. Anyway, don't you just love this team? There's always some shit going on. It's never quiet around me. We're in the midst of a season. It's week 10. We're 4-5, got a big Monday night game, and this is the shit we got. Like, I want to say poor Ron, but it's not poor Ron. Ron knew what he was signing up for, and if he didn't, shame on him. I don't feel bad for him because he took this job thinking, oh my God, no other job is offering me a coach-centric approach where I get to be in full control. Dallas isn't going to offer me that. The Giants aren't going to offer me that. The Browns aren't going to offer me that. Vikings aren't going to offer me that. Bears aren't. No one else is going to offer me that. Only Washington's foolish enough to give me that kind of power. I got to take it. So he ignored a lot of the shit that was going on around here and who he'd be working for. He ignored all of that. He got blinded by the power that was about to be bestowed upon him. And so he had no idea what he was walking into. So whatever he gets, I don't want to say he deserves it because nobody deserves to be in this organization and put up with the shit that he's had to put. But I can't feel bad for him. There's no sympathy for him. But this is the crazy part. He's gonna walk into the office tomorrow. He's gonna step up to the podium tomorrow, and the first 3 to 4 questions will have nothing to do with Philadelphia. And you know what he's gonna have to say over and over again? Guys, I'm focused on Philadelphia. We got a game to prepare for. The best thing that could happen if I'm Ron, and you can't control this because they got to practice first before he speaks to the media. If I'm Ron, I'm changing the schedule. We're practicing first thing in the morning. I want to get out in front of this major announcement, because if this shit comes out first, if the announcement comes out first before I step to the podium, my first 4 to 5 questions are about non-football shit. At least if the announcement doesn't happen, you might get the first 1 or 2 questions where they might say, hey, Ron, another distraction that you have to deal with, but this major announcement, do you have any idea what you think this could be? And Ron's be like, bro, seriously, you think I'm worried about that shit? But if they already know what it is, they're bringing that shit right to Ron's doorstep, and they're going to ask him at least 3 to 4 questions on the same shit. And if he doesn't answer it this way, someone else is going to ask him, and they're going to phrase it a different way. It's going to be the same damn question, but they're going to phrase it in a different way. And Ron's going to have to shoot it down again. And then finally, he's going to get pissed off, and he's going to say, look, guys, I just want to talk about football. If you don't have a question about the Eagles coming up, then we might as well stop this press conference right now. And then John Keim's going to step up, because he's always the guy that says something after Ron goes on one of those diatribes. And then he's going to bring up a football question, one that you really don't give a shit about, but at least it's a football question, and get it back in the right direction. Kind of know how this shit goes already. So that should be fun. But hey, we do have a game on Monday. Kind of feels like that Bears game. Like when all this shit, remember that's when the ESPN article dropped right before the Bears game. And I was like, hey, do have a game today. But does anybody care right now? Anyway, let's see what you guys have to say. Let's get to the comment section. Social media maneuvers. I'm a midnight marauder. Let's get into it. Let's get to social medias maneuvers. All right. J Kurt 21 or J Kurt 20, excuse me. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. J Kurt 20 writes, play Sam Howell. We're not going anywhere. Wentz and Taylor are not the answer. Ron and staff lack self-awareness. Do you think Ron sees his faults? Here's the thing, J Kurt. What you got to understand is Ron isn't here. And a lot of fans, I know you don't want to hear this. This is the honest to God truth. These coaches aren't thinking about the future. That's why this is why it's tough for a head coach to be in a position of power and have a coach-centric approach, because you have conflicting interests if you're a coach and you're the GM. It's the GM's job to think big picture, right? Roster, salary cap. This guy's got a contract coming up. This is a guy that we could get out of his contract after this year. We owe the Colts a 3rd round pick, but if we play Carson Wentz too long, it could turn into a 2nd, and we see this is a dead end. That's the GM's job, to stay ahead of the game and look big picture. It's the head coach's job to think about right now. How do I get my team prepared to win this game coming up in week 10? That is it. Okay. And so fans are more like GMs. We're thinking big picture. Wentz isn't the answer. Heinecke isn't the answer. Howell is the only guy that we don't know. So put him in and let's see. Well, guess what? The head coach isn't thinking about next year, the year after next, or the year after that, because he may not be here for all of that. He's thinking about right now, finding a way to get the record back to 500 on the season at 5-5. He's got 53 guys in the locker room. You want to count the guys on the practice squad. There's another 10 to 12 there. There's like 60 to 65 guys that he's concerned about trying to find a way to get them to win a ball game. So when you talk about self-awareness, Ron has self-awareness. His self-awareness revolves around getting this team prepared to win this week on Monday Night Football. That's all he's aware about. He hears the noise about the quarterbacks. He knows. And he knows there's a chance that they effed up by going out and traded for Carson Wentz. He hasn't acknowledged that yet because in his mind, Wentz hasn't had a big enough sample size, hasn't had enough of an opportunity. First year in the offensive line was in shambles. It stabilized itself. And if he gets the same offensive line that Heinecke's had, he should be able to perform at a much higher rate than he did before he got injured. Defense is playing much better than when he got hurt. And so this is a different team. He'll have a better opportunity. Hopefully you'll get Jahan Dotson back. You'll get a healthy stable of tight ends. They're starting to get healthy. Hopefully they stay that way. Running back position, I think could be enhanced by better play calling, adding in Curtis Samuel as a runner, things of that nature. But Ron isn't worried about anything other than trying to get this team to win this week with Taylor Heinecke under center. And then when Carson Wentz is available, he'll stick him back in and they'll try to find a way to get him up to speed and help this team win with Carson Wentz under center. And the minute they're no longer a viable option for the postseason, that's when you can start the Sam Howell conversation. And I think they'll put him in at that point. But not a second, not a snap, not a game sooner than that. All right. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, bring back Jay Gruden. Well, for those of you unaware, we had a conversation on the podcast about Jay Gruden versus Ron Rivera, and Fat American brought it up. Excuse me. And he feels like this team would be no worse than 6-3 with Jay Gruden as its head coach. I vehemently beg to differ. Now, I don't know. I think Ron Rivera is a better coach than Jay Gruden. I think Jay Gruden is a much better offensive mind than Scott Turner. So if you could take Jay Gruden and make him our offensive coordinator, I think our offense would be off the charts. I think this team would be much better from that standpoint. But as far as getting the team, the entire team, 53 men, galvanized and believing in one goal and fighting until the very bitter end, that's not Jay Gruden. That's Ron Rivera. We've been down this road many times with Rivera. Team's been down 20-0, 22-0. Team's been down 24-3, been down big in multiple games, and this team fights, comes back, wins, or at least makes it interesting. Not always do they win. We were down 14-0 at the Steelers, if you recall, in that game. Came back and won. Down 24-3 to the Detroit Lions. Tied the thing up at 27 before losing 30-27. We were down 20-0 to the Giants, got as close as 20-14 before losing that game. And that's, again, back in 2020. Hell, this year, you're down 20-0 against the 22-0 against the Lions. Got within a score twice in that game. Just could never get the stop you needed to get the football back and have a chance to tie or take the lead. You're down 24-0. You never got close in that game against the Eagles, but you never stopped fighting either. Had opportunities to make it interesting. You were never going to win that game. Never. But you could have made it interesting. This team fights, if nothing else. We've seen it repeatedly over and over again. So I never saw that with Jay Gruden. Dan Snyder, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, I can't take it anymore. I'm selling the team to you. I wish I had the bread. I wish I had the bread to buy it. I wish I had the bread to buy it. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Video channel, right? Sup, Lou? What's up, video channel? What can be done to help Scott on Sundays? Play calling suspect like Bobby Shmurda dancing. You ain't like the Shmurda dance? There's really not much that can be done, because understand that Scott has a philosophy. Scott's not very malleable. He's very rigid in the way that he thinks. He doesn't fit and adjust to what's going on or to his personnel. He has certain plays that he likes, that he wants to go to, and despite what's going on in the game, he's going to call his plays. And how it should work is there should be certain players in certain instances that you look to get the football to, and that dictates the play you call, versus I want to run this play and whomever gets the ball gets the ball. Whatever the defense, dictates, that's who will get the ball. Like if it's 3rd and 8, I don't want Dax Milne being the primary read, because that's where the defense dictates the ball should go. That's not how a smart offensive coordinator operates. If it's 3rd and 8, I'm going to make sure my guy is set up to get the football. Whether I got to isolate him one-on-one, I got to put him in motion so that you can't jam him. So I can identify coverage. Is it zone? Is it man? Whatever I got to do to make sure that my players are put in the best position to succeed, and my guy that I trust is getting an opportunity, that's what I'm going to do. He doesn't seem to understand that, though, a lot of times. So I don't know if there's any helping. You just got to hope guys go out and make plays. Whatever he calls, you got to try to make him right. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Metaphor, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, so number 4 wasn't even 0 alcohol, straight up bottle of dirt. It was straight non-alcoholic Heinecke all game long for 4 quarters. Think about the one touchdown that he threw to Curtis. That wasn't a good decision. That wasn't a great throw. Are you crazy? That was the worst decision he made all game. It just happened to work out because of an official setting a stagger screen. So he was terrible in the game, man. I was so disappointed in his performance. Took me back to last year after a handful of games where I was resigned to the fact that this, because I wanted Heinecke to be the answer last year. I wanted to see how he fared. I wanted to give him a fair shot. And it didn't take long for me to realize, all right, this is what it is. We got a very competent backup quarterback on our hands, a damn good one, but he's nobody's starter. And it pained me to say that, because I'm rooting for the kid. I'm tired of being in the quarterback wilderness. He went to ODU, and so I wanted to be able to say, that's my guy. That's a monarch right there, holding it down. But at the end of the day, he is what he is, and I'm okay with that. But that's part of what you get with the package. It's just frustrating, because we didn't have to lose that game. It wasn't necessary. So Ninja X, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. So Ninja X writes, Scotty Bow Body on Asmat, and I won't blame TLH. Well, you should. If you watch the film, you'd blame him. You'd blame him, all right. As much as I love to, as the next man, to put a lot of the blame right on the lap of Scott Turner, and God knows he deserves a lot of it. I can't do it. Not in this game. There's a lot of things Scott did wrong, and there's a lot of things I don't agree with. We could sit here and talk about the run game and the inability to get Curtis Samuel more touches, the inability to get some of your playmakers the ball out in space. But a lot of that in this particular game rests on the shoulders of Taylor Heinecke, because there were opportunities to get Armani Rogers the football in space, to get Antonio Gibson the football in space, to get Brian Robinson the football in space, to get Logan Thomas the football in space, and he didn't. And not that Logan Thomas in space is having anybody's quiver, right? It's not, but you just opportunities missed. Period. You hate to see it. It was way too much meat left on the bone. Way too much meat. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, TH4's last game this season will be on Monday. It's possible. Again, we can't confirm nor deny where Carson Wentz is in his recovery. They said 4 to 6 weeks. They could shot clock him like they did Chase Young and then just not play him that first week. So I'm thinking, and this is the way my brain works. Whatever game you bring Carson Wentz back in, you want it to be the best possible opportunity for him to get a good start under his belt and gain confidence and instill confidence back in the team in him, right? Because this team will rally around Taylor Heinecke. We've seen that already. They've shown that already. They love Taylor Heinecke. They'll go to war and they'll battle for Taylor Heinecke. I don't know if the same could be said for Wentz. I'm pretty sure that those players don't care who's starting. They're going to bust their ass to try to win regardless. But there's a little bit extra there when it's Heinecke, because they know when the game's on the line, Heineke's going to give them an opportunity. And that's why I would have loved to have seen him get the football. Despite as bad as he played throughout that game, I still feel really confident that if he would have gotten the football back, if there's no John Ridgeway penalty, and he had gotten that football back with a minute 40, 3 left and one timeout, or a minute and 40, or a minute and 50. I think it was 1:55 when they were kicking the field goal, and then I think they kicked it, and it was like 1:50 and a timeout. I'd like to think that he was, at a bare minimum, we were going to get in the field goal range. The question is, were we going to beat these bastards in regulation? That's how I feel about Heinecke when the game's on the line. All that other shit, the other 55, 58 minutes, y'all can have that shit. With the game on the line, the final 2 minutes, 3 minutes of the game, give me Taylor Heinecke. But will this be his last game on Monday? There's a distinct possibility that it is, as a starter. I won't say his last game, like he's not ever going to play another game in the Commander's uniform. And I know what you're saying. Could it be his last game starting this season? It could be. Very well could be. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Duncan Wright, right. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes. Is Odell still worth it, or is he just hype? I just don't want Cowboys or Giants to get him in case he's the real deal, but personally, I'd pass. Whatever team gets their hands on him, if he's healthy, he's going to help their football team. Yeah, he's legit. I mean, we saw it last year. The Rams went from, they're cool, to Super Bowl champions, and they don't get there without Odell Beckham Jr., despite him getting hurt in the Super Bowl. And he was on his way to being a Super Bowl MVP before he got injured. Like, he's that kind of an impact player. If he's healthy, he's going to help a football team wherever he goes. So there's a reason why a lot of teams are interested. You rarely are able to add that kind of a talent this late in the season without having to give up some type of compensation. To be able to just get him and sign him, he's going to be a hired gun for someone. And if I had to guess, I'd say it's going to be in this division because of the way the Rams are playing right now. He's not looking to go there. The way the Packers are playing, he's not looking to go there. Those were two names that were out there that I felt like made a ton of sense for his services. They suck. So now the focus shifts to was in New York before, would love to go back there. Different management, different vibe there. And then there's Dallas. And he's listed reasons as to why he would go to Dallas. He's got family there, this, that, and the third. You've got guys that he's really cool with on the team that's out there trying to get him. Buffalo still exists as an option as well. Von Miller, who we won a Super Bowl with just a few months ago, it's definitely actively trying to get him to come on board. And so a lot of suitors for his talents. We'll see where he ends up. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, TH was bad as he's been the first few games, the last few games. Scott play calls didn't help either. Pass on 4th and 3 centimeters. Run for it. Run for it. TF. Too soon for how? Run it, fool. The F. I think that's what that was supposed to be. Yeah, it's too soon for Sam Howell. You know, one of the calls in the game that a lot of people lost their minds on, that 3rd and 9 quarterback draw. So upon further review of watching that particular snap, I don't actually think it was that bad of a call. Like if you watch it, first of all, it was one of those gotcha moments. Like Scott Turner was flexing his muscle trying to prove he was the smartest guy in the room. I don't like dick measuring contests. I pass on those. But I must say that play had a chance if Heinecke runs the right direction. It's blocked up for him to run to his right. And there's not a soul out there if he gets outside. The one defender that could have stopped him is starting to collapse towards the inside. And so Heinecke, if he veers to his right, I think he gets the first down and then some. He runs to the left, and there's about 3 Vikings with an opportunity. There's a guy spinning off of Charles Leno from behind. The guy that ultimately makes the tackle, which is Zadarius Smith, he's getting double teamed, but he spins back towards Heinecke, and Heinecke runs right into him. Zadarius Smith wouldn't have gotten him. You had the other defensive end in Danielle Hunter. He's peeling back towards where Heinecke ultimately went. He had no idea. If Heinecke goes in the opposite, he would have never been able to recover. He would have worked himself right into a block. And so there was nothing but space and opportunity to the right. And if Heinecke goes to the right, I think he gets the first down. As crazy as that may seem. And honestly, I don't know if he was supposed to run it like he did, or if he was supposed to throw the swing screen to Antonio Gibson. But they had 3 blockers out in front of Gibby. And if you throw that thing to Gibby, that thing has a chance to go. And so that's one of those plays where you're like, more likely than not, that's eye candy to attract the defense that way so that you can tuck it and run. But had he actually thrown it to Gibby, that shit had legs. If he runs to his right, that shit has legs. So again, Heinecke he wasn't good. His decision-making, even when it was just him running, wasn't good in the game. Dion, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Dion, once again, thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, double up, I ain't talking about Playboy because silicone parts are made for toys. I always get a kick out of that song when I see it, the video, and listen to the lyrics. It's a crazy song, and it's kind of risque for the day too. When you think about it, like now, I hear a song like that is nothing, but for back in those days, that was kind of crazy. I like them real thick and juicy. Want a king trouble, looking for a piece of that bubble. Anyway, I digress. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, without Dan, there's no 05. Hashtag Dan don't sell. Who's with me? Yeah, you on your own on that one, broski. Again, just so you remember, and I think you're well aware of this, but sometimes I think you need to be reminded. We didn't win the Super Bowl in 05. We just won a playoff game. That's it. Just one. Now it's the last time we've won a playoff game, but that's it. Just so you know. And I know you're being facetious. Of course, we there. Aldine Adkins, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double A writes, you like that? Skull. I don't like that, but Kirk played well, man. He got his ass whooped repeatedly in the game, and he stood in there like a big boy, and he made some big boy throws. He wasn't playing with big boy toys, but he was making big boy noise. I got to give him some respect. I got to put some respect on his name. He did some good things, man. With pressure in his face. DMV fan 123, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, that statement the Commanders put out was vile, man. It was, again, it took me back to the dark days of the Prince of Darkness himself. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought he handcrafted that statement. Again, it took me back to the days of Scott McCloughan and always taking the low road, always finding a way to throw somebody under the bus, bring up shit that has nothing to do with nothing because you're trying to distract people away from the real topic at hand. That shit was despicable, is what that was. But are you surprised? This is why they have to go. This is why they can't stay any longer. This is why this has to happen as quickly as possible, which we think is going to be by next March. I don't care. I've dealt with it this long. I can deal with it for another 4 months. Okay. It's not going to kill me. 5 months, however long it is. I just need it to get done. That's all. Shit was disgusting. DMV fan 123. Vile is the perfect word to describe it. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. JP writes, always good to see you, Lou. Likewise, JP. First off, how are you and the family doing? So much better, man. I mean, it's a night and day difference. When you're in it, you're like, damn, how long are we going to be here? When you finally get out of it, you're like, whew, man, it feels good to be back. I don't want to go back there. Secondly, what happens to Ron Mayhew and all the coaches and players we drafted if the new owners take over? I mean, we've seen this before. There's precedents to how this works. So the players don't have anything to do with this because it's new ownership. So the players are under contract for whatever they're under contract for. The owners aren't going to come in here and start getting rid of players. That's not how this works. The people that should be on notice and high alert are the staff, because what ultimately happens when new ownership comes in is you come in and then you want to get your people in place. Now, how it normally works, and it doesn't have to work this way, but how it normally works. And remember, Bezos, I don't think is a fan of the Washington Commanders. He may be an NFL fan and he may be a fan of another team. I don't think he's particularly a fan, but you get guys involved like Kevin Durant and Matthew McConaughey. These are fans of the team. Now, I don't know if they'll have a big enough share in the organization to actually make decisions or if they're just on the board, right? But I think you're better off with someone owning a team that isn't like a rabid fan, like Daniel Snyder was a rabid fan, because then you think you know what's best for the team. You come in and we got to get rid of this dude. We got to get rid of this coach, that coach, and this is what we got to do. You rather have the owner come in, hire a GM. I don't know if you want to keep Jason Wright as team president. Maybe you decide, hey, you're doing a really good job. We like you. We're going to keep you here, right? If he wants to stay. But you hire all of those guys in the front office and you let them decide if they want to keep Ron around. So that new GM comes in here and he probably is going to give Ron that first year to prove that he belongs here. And if at the first sign of trouble, okay, get rid of his ass. I'm going to get my guy in here. And that's when you start getting into, all right, do we want to re-sign Montez Sweat, Deron Payne? If you're a shrewd football guy, you're going to look at these guys and you say, okay, definitely keeping him, and him. Rest of these dudes, they're disposable. We'll see how it goes. And then they're going to start bringing in their guys that fit what they want to do. So it starts with the front office. I think the guys that would be in the most trouble would be all of the guys Ron hired and Mayhew and Marty Herney and all of those. Those are the guys that would be the first on the chopping block because new ownership wants to bring in high-ranking officials that can make football decisions. What you should be afraid of is if the ownership comes in and they're not interested in bringing in a real football GM, but rather they want to do it themselves, like when Dan got here. And he wants to play de facto GM with Vinny Serrato and firing up Redskins 1 and going and signing this guy, telling this guy that he no longer has a parking spot, doing this over here, and just doing a whole bunch of stupid shit. That should scare the shit out of you because we could be going down the same road. But if they come in here and their first order of business is to assess the front office and they decide, all right, Martin Mayhew, cool, glad you're here, but we're going to go in a different direction. Appreciate what you've done. Same with you, Marty Herney. We're going to go in a different direction. We're going to bring in our own guys. Then that you should be happy about that. But the likelihood is if they don't get in office until March, bro, you're literally the start of the new league year, free agency, draft is right around the corner. You don't have time to bring in new scouts, new GM, new coaches. You just got to roll with what you got that first year, which is why I think Ron is good for at least another year. And everybody else in the organization is good for at least the next year. Now, could you find yourself, and Ron found himself in this exact same position, first year with a new owner, you get the benefit of the doubt, you get into the season, you struggle, and you get canned during the season. That shit could happen. Look at what happened in Denver. New ownership group takes over. They don't touch the GM. He was there before they got there. They don't touch anything. All right, they leave everything as is. The new GM had already hired a coach, so they didn't touch anything. They just left it alone. But they were looking at Hackett, right? They were looking at Hackett and saying, bro, if you don't fix this shit, we may have to fire your ass. We just got here, but we don't like the way this shit is going. Then he gets a big win over in London, and it's calmed everything down. They had a bye week. Let's see what he does coming out of the bye. If he continues to struggle, they may can his ass his first year. That's what happens when you get new ownership. We ain't waiting around for shit to fall apart. We just got here, and we want to put our fingerprints on this shit. We're going to give you an opportunity to prove that you belong here. But if we don't like what we see and you don't give us a reason to believe, we can get your ass out of here. So I think that would be the whole way of looking at it. They're going to come in. They're not going to touch a lot of stuff. All right. There may be some other things, ancillary, behind the scenes shit that they start tinkering with. A lot of people think they're going to change the name. They're not changing any of that shit. We're the Commanders now. All right. I don't see them rebranding this thing, changing anything. They're just going to roll with what they got. Now, could they come in here, decide, Commanders is cheesy, we want something else? Sure, they could do that. I don't see it happening, but they could do that. Absolutely. I don't see them doing that. I think they come in and their sole purpose is going to be to start maximizing this organization's worth by doing the things that need to be done to add value to the organization, which ultimately helps you start to win. Their first order of business when they get here is to figure out how the hell are we going to get us a stadium and where are we going to build it at. To me, that's the first order of business. Because I don't see them changing the structure of the organization with Ron Rivera, Martin Mayhew, Marty Herney, and all those guys. It's just too much, too soon. You just let those dudes do what they do under new management and see what they can bring to the table. And if you don't like what you see, then you move on from those guys. But meanwhile, you need a new stadium. And you need that shit now. So you need to be breaking ground somewhere in 2023 on a new stadium that's going to be ready by 2027, which is when the lease for FedEx Field, I believe, is up. I think it's 2027, something like that. But you need to be breaking ground ASAP on a new stadium, and preferably you have it in the city. I think that's the first order of business. Start, working behind the scenes with these politicians and figuring out where this stadium is going to be built. But we'll see. It's a lot that goes into it. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Joe Rockhead J writes, and how should Brian Robinson feel about that owner of his team? I bet Ron won't have a raging press conference about that. Look, Brian Robinson isn't, I mean, if you've watched him talk and his demeanor, he's not a rah-rah guy. He's not someone that's going to be up in arms about this. I'm pretty sure privately with the people that he trusts, he's like, God damn, what I do? Why they dragging me into this shit? That's dumb. But he's not going to say anything, and he's not going to trip about it. He's just going to go about his business and do his job, and that's that. But everybody knows right from wrong. This shit is wrong. It's wrong. You can't even go to Two Stupid Dogs ride and go, isn't that cute? Because this shit ain't even cute. But it's wrong. We do know that. Sorry if I took your ears out on that one. Frankie, yo, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Danny Boy can take his 6 or 7 billion and stick to what he does best, cruising marinas and dodging subpoenas. Good riddance. I like that one. I honestly don't care how much he gets or what he does with it. I just want him gone. It ain't my money. I don't care. I just want him gone, personally. He could do where you want to sell the Mediterranean on his yacht, have at it. He can be a fan from afar. He didn't have to stop loving this organization. Just don't own it. Don't have anything to do with it. Don't be associated with it in any shape, way, or form or capacity. You can still root for the team like hell from your yacht out in the Mediterranean. Let's see. Mr. Ron B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mr. Ron B writes, our D played Philly tough for 3 quarters the first time. Can they do it again with just a little help from the offense? Just a little. Hell yeah, they can. I told you I like this spot. Like, Philly doesn't strike fear in my heart at all. That first game was so disappointing because we had opportunities to make some plays and we didn't. And then Philadelphia that Eagles game, and a lot of y'all probably don't remember this because it was so long ago, but that was the first game where the offensive line started to show its true colors, because that was the first game where we didn't have Chase Roulier at center. Remember, he got hurt on the very last snap versus Detroit in meaningless football. He got hurt, And we didn't know how the line was going to respond with no Chase Roulier, and I was all confident. Well, we got Wes Schweitzer, and as long as Wes Schweitzer is healthy, we'll be fine at center and we'll be okay. And not only were we not okay at center, that was the game where everybody realized, Trey Turner is absolutely ass. And he's been much better, and he truly was hurt because he looks better, but he still ain't it by any stretch of the imagination. But he doesn't look anywhere near as bad as he did early in the season. In that game, also, Andrew Norwell was exposed. He looked terrible. Like he was, couldn't move. And Sam Cosmi got hurt in that game too, if you remember. And so it was a mess. That line was a sieve. So that was the first game we had to deal with that. That's when we first realized, we really got, because remember, we had the Detroit first half, but then the second half, we came out, we dominated. So we didn't know we had real issues up front. They blitzed and we just weren't prepared. That was the excuse in Detroit. They showed us some things on film that we hadn't seen from them this season. Remember, second week of the season, small sample size. They didn't show a ton of blitzes against Philadelphia. And so we weren't expecting blitzes, and they blitzed us in the first half, and we weren't ready. Is that our team just frustrates me when they say shit like we weren't ready. This ain't tag. You weren't supposed to count to 20 and you counted to 7 and you started looking for us and we weren't ready. We didn't get a chance to hide. You had a whole week to prepare for them. You weren't ready. That's the best you got. They had a guy on special teams that got injured and they put a different guy in and we just didn't know. What? So one guy who was wearing a different jersey number confused the hell out of you, and that's why guys are running down unaffected, tackling our guy at the 12-yard line. Because the guy that you thought was going to be out there wasn't, and it was a different number, and we got confused. What the hell are you talking about? That's some weak-ass shit. Or as we like to say around these parts, that's weak. Shit is weak. I think we can compete with the Eagles for 4 quarters. Are we good enough to beat them? I don't know the answer to that, but we're a different team from the last time we saw them. And I think there's enough out there with what the Eagles like to do. I thought we did a tremendous job of keeping Jalen Hurts in the pocket. He was not a scrambler. His legs were not a factor against us. I think we have that part of his game nailed down. I thought we also did a phenomenal job of stopping them from running the ball. It was the Jalen Hurts throwing the football show. It really Hurts to Devontae Smith in that game that hurt us big time. There was a sprinkle of A.J. Brown, but it was mainly Hurts to Smith. So, and we still don't have an answer for that. Kendall Fuller can't cover him. We saw that in the last game. So there's still no real answer to that. The only thing that I can bat that, like, we didn't get any pressure on Hurts. Defensively, we're a different team this time around. The first game, Hurts had all day to do whatever the hell he wanted to do. He wanted to massage the ball. He could. He wanted to kind of, go through 5 different reads. He could do whatever he wanted to do. There was really no pressure on him. This game has to be different in that regard. We got to get to him. I think we can affect him a little bit more. And maybe we'll have Chase Young, and that may help. It may not make a bit of difference. It's his first game, so you can't expect too much out of him, but we'll see. Frankie, yo, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Frankie, yo, who writes, also, can we talk about the irony about the biggest criminal in D.C. has the nerves to try and talk about issues with crime in D.C.? Disgusting human. Oh, the irony. There may not be a bigger crime being committed on the poor constituents of, the 3 neighboring states of Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. Than what Daniel Snyder is perpetrating, and yet they want to bring up crime, violent crime in the city of DC. Okay. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the North writes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the North writes, Logan Paulson also said that was the worst game Heinecke had in his career. The thing is, we don't win versus Green Bay or Indy without 4. I'm not giving up on him yet. Maybe humble pie will help him. I didn't know that Logan Paulson said that, but I'm telling you, if you watch the film, you couldn't help but be dismayed at what you watched, because I'm not used to seeing that from Heinecke. You've never heard me come back and say that, Heinecke looked scared. And well, okay, I'm lying, because I said that last year in the New Orleans game, in the Kansas City game, parts of the Denver game. There were games where he was absolutely horrid last season. This reminded me of that. But this was different, though, because in those games, his mistakes made him a shadow of the player that he had been. Mistakes ate away at his confidence last year. You saw it. 1 turnover turned into 2, turned into him pressing. Now it turned him into a different dude. Okay. We saw that in the Buffalo game. We saw that in the Kansas City game. We saw that in the New Orleans game. We saw that in the Dallas game, both Dallas games. That's not what happened in this game. He just missed stuff over and 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 over again. And I'm just not used to seeing Taylor Heinecke do that. It's one thing if there's pressure, when you're making a bunch of, like, he just was missing stuff, not seeing it, staying on a read too long, panicking with pressure around him that's not really truly there, but you're making it there. Indecisive, where to go with the football. Okay, you don't like that. You don't like that. Get to your check down. It's not hard. Again, I expect that from Wentz. I did not expect that from Heinecke. Not after the game I saw him play against Green Bay in the second half when he was playing exceptional football. Not when I saw him do what he did on the final 2 drives against Indianapolis. I thought that was going to carry over. It did not. It did not. He was awful. To your point, we don't beat Green Bay and Indy without him. Facts. But if he plays better, we beat Minnesota, hands down. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. And if you watch the film, and literally as I'm watching the film again, I don't watch the film beforehand and then break it down. I'm literally watching the film for the first time with you guys. If you're gold members of the MOBP, when you watch the film, when you watch me watching the film, if you're there, and it's usually only like 3 or 4 of us watching it live. A lot of y'all go back and watch it, when you have time. But when you're sitting there watching it and you see my emotions and you see me going through it, you realize, oh my God, this is crazy when you see it. So it's good to know Logan Paulson saw the same thing that I saw, or vice versa. You could say you saw the same thing Logan Paulson. He played the game. He knows this offense and what they're supposed to be. Like, I don't know what's the first read. I can only go off of what Heinecke's looking at. I can only tell you what his first read or his second or his third read is by where his head goes. When he goes 1 to 2 to 3. But I can tell you, I don't have to know what his first or second or third read is. I can tell you what the check down is. And I can tell you by your decision-making, by his decision-making, that you didn't like what you saw clearly. Something spooked you. Something confused you. You couldn't see it clearly. Whatever the case may be, you got to get to your check down then. I don't know why you turned down Terry one-on-one deep. I don't know why you're staring at Diami. He's got a safety 6 yards over the top, but you got all this space to work across the field. That safety could never get there if you lay the ball out going across the field. Only way that safety impacts the play is if you try to throw it up the field. And you turn that down for some reason. So you don't like Diami, who's your first read. You don't like Terry, who's your second read. Well, there's Brian Robinson in the flats for 15-yard gain. And you don't take that either. Well, what are we doing? I'm baffled. Don't have to know the reads to know that you didn't like what you saw downfield. Okay, take the check down. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Who writes, regardless of how the season plays out, we have to go quarterback in the first round of the draft. If we're not, we're banking on Howell and hoping he pans out. Huge recipe for the disaster for a team trying to win now. So here's the thing, JP, that you have to understand. You can't be assured that quarterback is what you will do in the first round, because let's say Washington, let's say we make the playoffs. 7th seed equates to the 21st pick in the draft, 22nd, something around those lines. Let's say you just missed the playoffs and you're the 19th pick in the draft. Either way, you're nowhere close to the top of the draft where all the quarterbacks are going. I've already talked about the Texans. They're going to probably have the number 1 pick in the draft, and they need a quarterback. Davis Mills stinks. Okay. The Panthers are dying to get their hands on a quarterback. They're fighting their asses off. They play in a terrible division. I won't count them out from winning 6 games. With how they're playing for their coach, Steve Wilkes, their interim head coach, and because that division stinks, they went on Thursday night against the Falcons. They're right back in the mix. They lose to the Falcons, and then you may see them take a nosedive. Either way, they need a quarterback, and they're going to get one. If they're second or they're third, they're going to get a quarterback. They're going to be somewhere in that mix more likely than not. We'll see. There's the Vegas Raiders, who absolutely suck ass. Don't think for 1 second that they won't move on from Derek Carr's ass, because they are. Okay? Let them end up with the 2nd pick in the draft. Derek Carr will be traded. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, hey, Ron, stay away from that shit, man. The Colts are looking like Birdman hand rub. This is our shit. That's their GM shit right there. That's remix. Do it again. I'm looking at us and I'm saying, well, that's the shit we do. Ron's been trying that shit for the last few years. I don't want no parts of it. But somebody's going to trade for Derek Carr if the Raiders end up with the 2nd pick in the draft, because they're going to take a quarterback. I said all of that to say this. The problem this year with all these quarterbacks, but teams needing quarterbacks, is that the teams that end up in the top 5, most of them are going to need quarterbacks, and they're not looking to move out of the pick that's going to allow them to take a quarterback. Now, you could end up with a quarterback, and just like, I'll give you an example, just like 2020, when there were all those quarterbacks, or 2021, excuse me, when it was Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. It was 5 of those bastards. And 3 went 1, 2, 3, bing, bang, boom. But then there was a little space and a little gap, and then Justin Fields went. And then there was another little quick gap, and then Mac Jones went. You could trade up into that 2nd window to get a Justin Fields, or that 3rd window to get a Mac Jones, but that's what you're going to have to do. But do you, again, we had the same conversation back in 21. Do you love any of those quarterbacks? We did not love Fields or Mac Jones. Clearly. Because you could have gone up to get either one. You didn't. And they talked about, they really liked Justin Fields, and they talked about potentially going up, but they did not like the price tag that was associated with going up. They had conversations with teams that were up there, and they wanted to move, but they were asking for not only picks, but they were also asking for players, i.e. Daron Payne and Montez Sweat. And they were like, nah, we ain't doing that. So the asking price was just a little too steep. So you got to ask yourself, JP, what is it going to take? Do you love the player, and are you willing to do whatever it takes to go get that guy? And is he even going to be available for you? Don't know. We don't have the answers right now. Quentin Ruiz, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Quentin Ruiz, writes, your Grizzlies just beat my Spurs in overtime. We got beef now, LOL. That's funny that you brought that up because I hadn't looked at my phone yet, but I wanted to know. I knew we play y'all. Y'all always play us tough, especially in San Antonio. So I wanted to see if we were able to take care of business. And you just told me, so I appreciate that. He says, you probably already answered this, but do you see us beating Philly at the Lincoln? At the Link. The stinking Lincoln. I can see it happening. I mean, am I picking it to happen? You're going to have to stay tuned to see what I decide to do. But you're damn right we can do it. This game is giving me Steelers vibes from 2020. It is. Remember, that was a Monday night game as well. Now, it wasn't supposed to be a Monday night game, but it ended up being a Monday night game. Now, that game wasn't nationally televised. If you weren't in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. markets, you weren't getting that game because there was an actual Monday night game that night that we were playing simultaneously with. But this is on Monday night for all to see. And nobody, look, last time I checked, and this number could have gone up, it could have gone down. Last time I checked, we were 10.5-point underdogs. What? I mean, I get it. The Eagles are better than us, and they smoked us the first time. They're playing excellent football. They're at home. I mean, everything's stacked against us, but 10.5-point favorites? Ouch. That hurts. I mean, that's a sign of ultimate disrespect, but that's when we're at our best, when we're disrespected in that manner right there. So I like our chances. Doesn't mean we're going to win, but I can tell you this. I'm going to guarantee this at least. We'll be way more competitive than we were the first time. Way more competitive. I'll tell you, they at no point in the competitive portion of this game, rather, will the Eagles be up by 24 points. I mean, that's not a very high bar to set. But in my mind, I don't think there'll be any time in the game until like really late, a late touchdown that puts it out of reach, where they're up by anything more than 10. Right? I just see us fighting tooth and nail. I think even if we lose, I see it being more along the lines of the Cowboys game they had, where it's nip and tuck, it's close, and they got to fight. Similar to the game they just had against the Texans. I see it being more like that than all of the games where they've outscored opponents by 20 points in the second quarter like they did us and dominating at halftime. They're up by 3 touchdowns, which has been the case for them a lot of the season this year. I don't know how much they've trailed. I think they haven't trailed at all in the second half of a game this season. I think I saw that. I'm looking to change that shit on Monday. That just because they trail doesn't mean they lose. But I'm looking to put some game pressure on them. Again, I don't feel like Jalen Hurts he's had some. I can't make that statement anymore that he hasn't had any game pressure on him this season because he had game pressure on him against Jacksonville. They were down in that game. But he hasn't had a ton of game pressure. He had some game pressure against Dallas when the Cowboys started to mount that comeback. And then they had to have a drive, and he put together a drive. Again, most of it was on the ground, and he didn't have to do much with his arm. But still, that was game pressure, and he handled it well. So I'm just looking to put more on him. The more, the better. Go Grizz. Let's see. Marcus B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Marcus B writes, with new owner, Ron got to go all in for a QB. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, Ron has to do whatever it takes to keep his job. And if you're Ron, you're not necessarily looking to rock the boat. If you're Ron, though, you want a quarterback. I mean, that's how you're going to keep your job. But do you want a rookie quarterback, or do you want an established veteran quarterback that's going to give you a chance to win right now, like Derek Carr? I mean, that's the shit that should scare you, honestly speaking. If you really want to be honest, you should be afraid of a guy like Derek Carr being available next offseason. That's the shit that should scare you. Because Ron has already shown that he will go after a veteran quarterback. Maybe Wentz's lack of success will spook him and force him to go the draft route. But they got Howell, and they want to win now. And drafting a young guy isn't exactly the win now model. That's how you get fired, which is why Jay Gruden wanted no parts of Dwayne Haskins, because he wanted a guy that he could get in here that could help him win now. He knew that Dwayne Haskins was not that. So, honestly speaking, I could see Ron deciding, hey, Derek Carr's available. What do you guys think? And they say, hey, he gives us the best chance to win. We need to win to keep our jobs. Why not? If it works, great. We're here. If it doesn't, who gives a shit that we gave up draft picks? We're not going to be here to have to reap what we sow. Shit, let the next guy have to deal with not having a fill in the blank draft pick. That's their mindset. This is why it's dangerous to let guys who could be on the chopping block make decisions, because they don't give a shit about future ramifications. They won't be here to endure them, right? So what do I care about a 2024 second round draft pick? I ain't going to be here when that shit hits the fan. I'm trying to get this win now. And if we're here, that's because we won, and then we'll deal with that stuff. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. That American writes, when would you put Howell in if it were up to you? I mean, again, I would put Sam Howell in when I saw fit. Like, I wouldn't have put him in yet. I know a lot of you would have done that. Some of you, I shouldn't say a lot of you. Some of you would have put him in already. We're not at that portion of the season yet, right? I wouldn't necessarily wait till, okay, mathematically now we're eliminated. Like, you have a feel in the pulse of your team. You understand where you are. Again, you don't want to lose the locker room. You put Sam Howell in. You're telling the rest of the team, we're punting on the remaining portion of the season in effort to find out if this kid can do it or not. Well, that doesn't bode well for wanting a guy like Daron Payne to stay, or Montez Sweat, or keeping Jonathan Allen happy, or Terry McLaurin happy. Like, veterans that want to win, that put in the work during the work week to prepare to try to get a victory on Sunday, they don't want to hear that you're putting in this rookie quarterback to see what he's got. You can't do that shit at our expense. We're trying to win football games. He didn't give us the best chance to win, so why are you playing him? A lot of y'all don't think about how that impacts the locker room. You're just thinking about the big picture. If you want guys to believe in what you're doing, you got to do right by them. And doing right by the players in the locker room is putting the quarterback in that gives you the best chance. And whether that's Wentz or Heinecke, it's one of those two. It's definitely not Sam Howell. So you got to go that route until that route is no longer the best option for the team. Right now, the best option is either going to be Heinecke or Wentz. When that no longer fits into the grand scheme of the season and it doesn't matter, that's when, now mathematically, you could still be in it going into your bye week. Mathematically. But if we haven't played good enough football, if we haven't beaten Houston and Atlanta, and we're not where we need to be record-wise, but you're still mathematically not eliminated, I'm starting him that first game after the bye, and he's got the remaining portion of the season. That's the second Giants game. It's San Francisco, it's Cleveland, it's Dallas to finish up those final 4 games. That's when I would do it. You give the kid an extra week to prepare during the bye week. You get him ready, and you get him prepared to go out and try to win some football games, gain some confidence, show what he's about. Here's the problem with that. You could get the Dwayne Haskins rookie season treatment by doing that. You can get a false sense of, hey, this guy can do it. Remember what Dwayne showed us the end of 2019? That's what got us excited about year one with Ron and Dwayne getting the nod. We weren't excited about Dwayne because, we wanted him here. A lot of us didn't even want them to draft him. I'm guilty as charged. I didn't want Dwayne here. I thought Dwayne Haskins sucked. However, Dwayne showed us a little flash or two or three at the end of the 19 season. That Giants game before he got hurt, he was going toe-to-toe with Daniel Jones. And that may sound funny to some of you, but Jones kicks our ass and plays like he's Aaron mother effing Rodgers when he plays against us. That's how he plays. He plays like the second coming of John Elway when he sees Washington coming. Daniel Jones plays the best football of his life when he plays against us. And they were going tit for tat. Bing, bang, boom. Whatever they were doing, Dwayne was doing it and doing it better. He had 2 touchdown passes before he got hurt. The Eagles game the week prior to that, Dwayne was outstanding. I was scared that they were going to actually win that game and piss away the opportunity to get Chase Young. He was playing that well in that game. Had that 70-yard slant or whatever he threw to Terry. Terry took off. Remember, that was Terry's rookie season. He showed us some things down the stretch of that year, which got us excited about 2020, only to be let down and realize he's exactly what we thought he was, which is not very good when we drafted him. You can get the same thing from Sam Howell. Stick him out there, Final 4 games. He goes 3-1. He shows you promise. You're excited. He comes back the next year and he sucks ass. You didn't take a quarterback because you thought you might have had the guy, but you don't. And now we're doing this whole song and dance again in 2024. Who knows? 4 games is probably what I would do, the bye week. Again, that's if we suck. King Joffrey Joe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King Joffrey Joe writes, no, we got 110 mil next year, and Arthur smashes goading with your mama kitchen, making something out of nothing. I don't know what the hell that comment is. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm just going to move on. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, so they made changes and adjustments on defense. Maybe they should do the same on offense. Move Cosme or Lucas to guard, Gibby to RB1, John Allen to fullback? ? Well, we have a fullback. His name is Alex Arma. I'm excited about Alex Arma. I can't speak for any of you, but every time Alex Arma comes into the game, we gain 5, 6, 7 yards, and they never go back to him. Again, Scott Turner is an enigma. I don't understand why this is so hard. But John Allen isn't a fullback. I like my John Allen on the defensive line creating havoc that way. Gibby to RB1, I think it's an overrated conversation. I just need him to touch the football in space, and I need him to be in the game in some of these crucial situations, not Brian Robinson. But Gibby to RB1, if that's, if him starting the game off out on the football field is what floats your boat, knock yourself out. Cosme or Lucas to guard, not a fan of moving either one to guard. I don't think that Cosme, I think he could do it, but it just doesn't make sense. We drafted him to be a tackle. I'd rather him just play at tackle. Lucas, on the other hand, I think he could do it. He would probably be a lot like Eric Flowers if you kicked him inside. Big guy, long arms, paws, really capable, but not really going to move a lot of people, not really be dominant inside, but he'd get the job done. But again, I think he's one of the better swing tackles in the league, so I just leave him where he is. We just need to upgrade the offensive line in the offseason via the draft, honestly speaking. Okay. So King Joffy Joe, double up, thank you for doubling up. Is re-asking the first question because that shit made no sense. Says now in 2023, we got 110 mil next year. I guess he's talking about the Falcons. And he's saying Arthur Smash, I think he meant Arthur Smith. This is his way of being funny. Is goading with your mama kitchen. What Falcons doing next year with the cap? Re-asking the first question. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't think they have enough skill guys. So I think receiver is something especially after trading Calvin Ridley away, receiver is something you're going to have to invest in, whether that's the draft or free agency. That remains to be seen. But, a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster could be of interest to you. I think you need to add more speed. You already got Drake London, who isn't a burner necessarily. I think more speed, even though the ex-Carolina Panther is doing some good things for you this year. It'll be interesting to see what you decide to do, who becomes available, and what you decide to do with some of that cap space. You still need a pass rusher. I think that's still a big need for the Atlanta Falcons. So is there anybody out there that tickles your fancy? Do you need to go the draft route? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what's available and what you decide to do. But I mean, there are going to be a number of teams with some serious cap space. We'll see how they decide to use it. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Joe Rockhead J writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB writes. Will a potential lame duck GM/coach draft a quarterback? It happens all the time. It happened here with Jay Gruden, who didn't want Dwayne Haskins, but Daniel Snyder made that decision for him. It happened in Chicago last year. They had a lame duck GM and coach. They drafted Justin Fields. They got fired. Fields is still there. It happens all the time in the NFL because you don't get to decide when you get a chance to take a quarterback. If you're in a deep quarterback draft class or you like one of the guys and you sucked the year before and you're in a position to take the quarterback, whether your coach is on his last year and on his way out or he's just getting started, you got to take the quarterback and figure it out as you go. Because as we've seen, these opportunities don't happen all the time, right? All right. Mr. Ron B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I know you're not talking keys for a W tonight, but our D has to force turnovers and give the offense a short field to cash in. 80-yard drives in hostile territory won't cut it. It's easier said than done, but we haven't really done that all year, Mr. Ron B. Only time we've ever created turnovers in the opposition side of the field and created short fields for our offense is on special teams. But our defense, even when we create turnovers, it's usually stopping the other team as they're driving to go into the end zone. Case in point, we get an interception of the Vikings last week. It happens in the end zone as they're going for a touchdown right before the half. They've already got a field goal in hand. If they don't turn it over, they don't gain another yard, they got a field goal. He tries to be aggressive. Juice knocks it in the air. It's picked off by Danny Johnson. That's the shit that we do. We'll pick it off at our own 13-yard line. Now we still got 87 yards of real estate in front of us. But you stop them from scoring. That's all you care about. But we don't generally get the turnovers deep in our, territory or a pick six. When's the last time we scored on defense or special teams? I think the last time the defense and or special teams chipped in was last year against Atlanta when DeAndre Carter ran back the kickoff of the second half for a touchdown. Quote, now correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember a defensive score since then. I think Bobby McCain had a pick six against the Giants in week 18 last year. What did he do? I think he had a pick six in that game. That shit don't count for me. That was meaningless football for both teams. But, I mean, if you're technically speaking, I think that's the last time the defense has done something. We don't. So it'd be nice to create turnovers. It'd be nice to create a short field. But as I say every week, I'm not banking on that. I'm not looking for it. Just don't turn it over. If we don't turn it over against Minnesota, we beat them. Just play a clean game. That's it. All right. Mr. 600 Class. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mr. 600 Class writes, hey, Lou. What's up? Say LJ comes available and doesn't want to stay in Baltimore. You buying? Ain't no way the Ravens are allowing that dude to leave. Of course I would be interested. But you'd have to shape your entire team around Lamar Jackson's strengths, which the Ravens have done. All of our receivers would be rendered pretty much obsolete because he's a tight end guy, which is what they've done in Baltimore, which is why they don't really have any receivers right now. A lot would have to change that I don't know if y'all are willing to change, but I know you want the quarterback. But guess what? This is a exercise in futility because he's not going anywhere. You know, John Harbaugh has already made it abundantly clear that they intend on re-signing Lamar Jackson, and they'll do whatever it takes to make that happen, which means if they got to franchise tag him this year and next year, they're going to do that in the effort to try to keep him in Baltimore. And Lamar wants to stay in Baltimore. He wants to be there. You know, negotiations can be a little bit tenuous sometimes, but at the end of the day, cooler heads are going to prevail. He's going to get what he wants. They're going to have to probably cave in a little bit. He may have to cave in a little bit, and there may have to be give and take on both sides. But at the end of the day, he's going to end up a Baltimore Raven. Mr. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, what happened to the days of just waiting on your QB to grow? Alex Smith was an example of that. Rough years to start, rough few years at first, but they stuck with him. But that's not how it works anymore, Fat American. You're stuck in 05. That's the problem. I've talked about this ad nauseum. That's been one of my probably favorite topics to talk about is the lack of patience that exists in sports, particularly in football anymore. There used to be a time where you draft a guy in the first round and he had 3-4 years to figure it out. And it didn't matter the position, quarterback included. Now you draft a quarterback in the first round, his ass better be playing week one. Like, who's sitting down a quarterback anymore in the first round? Like, that shit doesn't happen. We saw the at some point, if you don't start the season off, you're going to be in there by like week 3 or 4. We saw it with Deshaun Watson when he was in Houston. They tried to do the whole, his ass was in there by like week 4. Blake Bortles in Jacksonville, they tried that shit with Chad Henne. His ass was in there by like week 4. We saw the same thing with the Steelers with Mitchell Trubisky this year. We're going to go with Mitch. He starts the first 3 or 4 games, and then they're like, all right, bro, get your ass in there. See what you got. If you draft a guy in the first round, he got to play. And everyone's rushing to some sort of conclusion on these guys right out of the gate. You know, oh, Trevor Lawrence sucks. Need to think about drafting another guy. Like, this is second year in the league, second year in a different offense. Give me a break. Same with Zach Wilson, Mac Jones. You know, Trey Lance has barely played because of injury. But all of these guys are young. We shouldn't be like, that's the thing that irks me with Chase Young is Chase Young's only played 2 seasons. I get it. He's a defensive player. He's not an offensive guy. He doesn't have different coordinators and playbooks and things he has to worry about. He's just got to go out and ball. But last year wasn't an ideal season for him. But how dare you call him a bust after that? Because of one bad season? It's just crazy to me. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. OG, triple OG, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Scott Turner has digressed. So promising in 2020. I couldn't agree more. I was excited about him in 2020. And I told you guys, don't be shocked if he gets a job on some Sean McVay type shit. I couldn't have been further from the truth. He's gotten worse, as you mentioned. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, I don't know. Feel like you got to give the youngin a chance. I hear you, but you got an entire locker room to consider and how that impacts them. So there's a lot of moving parts. It's not just as simple as, oh, Carson isn't the answer. Neither is Taylor Heinecke. Let's just throw Sam Howell in and see how he does. If it were that simple, everybody would be playing younger players to see what they can do. But it's not that simple. It's not as cut and dry as, hey, need to find out about this kid. Let's throw him in there. You got other guys that want to win, that are busting their ass, and they want the guy in there that's going to give them the best chance to win. They're not concerned with the big picture. They're concerned with, how do we win a game this week and help build momentum for next week and the week after that and the week after that and the week after that. Miss Perry, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Miss Perry writes, like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Y'all heard her. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB as always. She's giving me the opportunity. She threw me the oop. I'm going to take it. Y'all go ahead. Like this video if you haven't already done so. Subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. And if you haven't already done so, turn on that notification bell. All right. Cost you nothing to do any one of those things. Make it happen so you don't miss a thing here on the Louie T Network. F. Altus, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, what a classless organization, using B-Rob's shooting to deflect from its own toxic past. Sell the team. Sick of this tenure and its disgusting shamelessness. You said it, my man. God, that is so low class. I mean, low budget, and just absolutely the epitome of what this organization has been under Daniel Snyder. Like, this to me is the essence of what they've been. It's the antithesis of what an NFL organization is supposed to represent and look like and conduct, how they're supposed to conduct themselves. It's despicable. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, John Allen is another example, 6-year and all pro. I said this watching the film. This was so fun to watch from John Allen. He's playing the best football of his career. He, to me, is the 4th best defensive tackle in football right now. And to me, it's not close. It's Aaron Donald, take 16 steps, and then you get to the second best guy, and that's Chris Jones. The next guy, and you could argue too, is Chris Jones or Big Jeff Simmons in Tennessee, as my guy likes to say. And those are the first 3. You put them in whatever order you want. Obviously, Aaron Donald is number 1, and then after that, you can do what you want to do with 2 and 3. And then there's John Allen. I don't think there is. You can't find a 4th defensive tackle that's better than John Allen in this league right now. The way he's playing, he's an all-pro right now. And to your point, he's gotten better, but he was never ass. I think we thought that this was his ceiling and that he had flatlined and this is where he was and this is what he was going to be. I'm guilty of that. I thought, oh, yeah, he's solid, but he's not a true difference maker. Bullshit. John Allen has figured it out. He's a true difference maker. Bullshit. So yeah, you're right about that. But that's not how it goes anymore. Guys don't get that opportunity to prove what they're capable of, 4 years into their rookie deal. You've already had your time to shine, and you've been put in a box by year 4. My biggest example of a late blossoming defender that turned into a star was Nnamdi Asomugha. His first 2 years in Oakland as a Raider they were meh. It wasn't until his 3rd season where that light bulb goes on and he turns into an absolute menace and starts to play the kind of football that would lend itself to him being an all-pro and one of the best corners in football. That didn't happen until year 3 into year 4. But you generally don't get that kind of time anymore. You just don't. If you're not doing it after year 2, we put you in a box. We labeled you. Either you're a bust or you're a jag. Or you're solid, but you weren't worthy of a first-round pick. We made a mistake. Malachi Malik, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Malachi Malik, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, enough with the Jay Gruden talk, guys. He had Deshaun Jackson pinching his milk duds, LOL. He can't rally a team as a head coach. I couldn't agree with you more, man. Like, that kind of stuff will never die. Those stories will never get old. And you can't win with a coach that wants to be his players' best friends. It's just not how this shit works. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, and number 94 too. Took a few years for them to become elite. Exactly. I was adamant that Daron Payne, you guys know how I felt about his selecting in the draft and all of that stuff. It's well documented. I wasn't the most massive, fan of Daron Payne. I love that he was here. Once you draft him, he's a part of the family. I rooted like hell for him. And he was a really good player against the run, but he wasn't a dominant, pass defender. That's changed this year. This is by far and away his best season. It's not even close. I mean, he's leading the team in sacks right now with 5.5. He's already set a career high. His previous career high was 4.5 sacks in the season. He's already got 5.5. He's going to hit double digits if he stays healthy. He's going to hit double-digit sacks this season. Let that shit resonate. Who saw that coming a year ago? None of you. And I know some of you are huge Daron Payne fans. Huge. I know one in particular. He couldn't have even seen this coming. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. OG, triple OG. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Lou, you created this family. Win or lose, thanks. Thank you for being a part of it. Without people like yourself, this ceases to exist. So thank you for being a part of it. F. Altus, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. F. Altus, who writes, did you see what Kirk said post-game? I didn't. I stayed away from that shit because I was so pissed off. While I thought Kirk played well, I didn't want to hear none of that shit. I didn't want to hear nothing. I even hated the fact that I saw Kirk, no shirt, all the chains. I've seen that shit after he's beat other teams. I didn't want to see that shit after he beat us. So I even saw that, and that shit made me want to vomit. So no, I didn't hear what he said. He says, KOC runs through situational football plays in every game, every week. KOC must have been laughing his ass off seeing Ron melt down with timeouts and the penalty. Reminded me of Gruden versus Dallas. Gruden, tree, stay, W. Every coach that comes in here that has a sense of clock management, game management, things like that, they have to leave here laughing at us, because it's usually a week in, week out basis where we do something that's blunder worthy, whether it's end of the first half clock management or lack thereof. We do that almost every week. Or it's late game situation, well, the analytics guy told me to do that, so I did it. Okay, good job, Ron. Or you're wasting a challenge. You don't throw it against Philadelphia when it looked like it wasn't a catch and it was a big play in the game. And then you throw it every other time thereafter. And I thought in 2020, when he used the challenge flag, he was excellent. Much like Scott Turner's play calling, he's regressed with the challenge flag each of the last 2 seasons. He's been actually terrible with it. And so he's been horrid this season. Doesn't throw it when he should, throws it every time he shouldn't, it seems like. So, yeah, the situational football isn't a strength of this staff. So I guarantee you a lot of, coaching staffs come in here and say, can you believe how these guys handled X, Y, Z? Sucks, but that's where we are. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, do you credit their growth to Skanina and Kerrigan? Talking about the D-line. I do. I don't know how much of it is Kerrigan necessarily, but he's a part of the D-line group, so I'm going to give him credit. But I think Jeff Skanina getting in there has made a massive difference. I just see them rushing in unity, and every time somebody comes scot-free, like there was a play where Jamin Davis starts out to the left of the defense, the right of the offensive formation. You got Jonathan Allen, who pre-snap didn't even know what the hell to do. He's got his hands out like, hey, what are we doing? Remember, there's no Cole Holcomb with the green dot, so the communication isn't the greatest. And John Allen, I think late gets it right before the snap, what they're doing. And you see 3 guys rushing towards the right of the defensive offensive formation, the left of the defensive line, right? And you see Jamin Davis loop around straight to the middle. No one touches him, and Kirk's got to get rid of the football. And Deron Payne jumps in the air and bats it down. And it's beautiful synchronicity. And you're like, we weren't doing that shit last year. Only the interior guys, for the most part, are winning their one-on-ones and dominating. But it's so refreshing to know that if Allen or Payne get one-on-ones consistently enough, they're going to win their fair share. There was a point in time where you could have given everybody across the defensive line one-on-ones, and I wasn't sure if anybody was going to win. Now you give this group consistent one-on-ones up front, especially the guys inside. Those are our 2 sack leaders, in case you didn't know. Allen has 4.5, Payne has 5.5. Like, your 2 defensive tackles are leading your team in sacks. Combined, they might have more sacks than the entire rest of the team. They've got 10. I know that FA has 3 and Sweat has 3, and that's 6. Those are the next 2 guys. You might have a couple of ones in there, maybe 2 or 3 ones, but collectively, those 2 guys have 10 sacks. They're winning one-on-one matchups. They're getting to the quarterback. They're hitting him. They're affecting plays. I think credit has to be given to Jeff Skanina. And if you want to throw Ryan Kerrigan in there, go right ahead. OKG2000, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, DP is playing for payday. He check out once he's paid. I don't believe that, because Deron Payne is truly one of the guys on this team that loves football. And he'll tell you every opportunity he gets, man, I just love playing ball. Like, all that extra shit y'all be talking about, I don't care nothing about that. I just want to play football. And I believe him. I think he's one of these dudes that just loves playing football. And he's always going to have a chip on his shoulder. He's always going to be trying to get better. I truly believe that he loves ball, and he won't change a bit if he gets broken off. But again, we'll see. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Fat American writes, God, this D-line rush is so good. I love it, man. It's one of the reasons you have to be encouraged. If nothing else, this D-line is legit. Like, boss hit me up. He watched the Vikings game because the Cowboys were on a bye week. So he watches us every week anyway, because I'm a big fan and we always talk about the games. But he was like, bro, your D-line is nasty. And even I've talked to every bit of 15, 20 Vikings fans this week. And individually, to a man, they've all come and said, man, your D-line, they're nasty. They saw it firsthand. A lot of teams have seen it firsthand this year. They're legit. Now I need to see that from them against the best offensive line in football, against the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's going to be tough because the Eagles put so much stress on your defense. But I need it. This is when I need them to show up the most, in games like this. Got a super chat here from Ben Heinecke. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of Patreon, Ben. Greatly appreciate you for that as well. Who writes, thank you for all you do. Your enthusiasm, straightforwardness is what kept me going with this team through all the mess we have to go through. I can't thank you enough, Ben, for all the support that you've shown. And as I said earlier to another one of the viewers, I think it was Triple OG, that without you guys, this ceases to exist. I've been there where I was talking to myself or talking to 4 people. I know what it's like. It's not fun. So this is fun. Chopping it up with y'all, back and forth banter, hearing from you guys, hearing your opinions. This is what makes this fun. And it's not always fun watching this team. It's not, hell, most of the time it's not fun watching this team. But you guys make it tolerable and oftentimes fun, despite all of the nonsense that we go through as fans. So I can't thank you guys enough. It's people like you, Ben. Thank you, man. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News, live. Look forward to chopping it up with you tomorrow on the show. I told you this was going to be a different work week. So normally today we would have jumped into the injury report. We would have been talking about what Rivera said. You would have heard from Taylor Heinecke as well in the presser. And we'd be talking about all of those things. And then tomorrow we'd be looking at the injury report again. We'd have a better feel for whether Chase Young would play this week. You're going to get everything started tomorrow. You're going to hear from Ron Rivera tomorrow. You're going to hear from Taylor Heinecke tomorrow. We're going to hear about Chase Young and we're going to hear about Jahan Dotson. This is our first opportunity to see if those guys get back onto the practice field or if they're still not practicing. Cole Holcomb as well. Will the cavalry arrive this week or not? We'll get a sense for that on Thursday. We really won't know until Friday, though. That's the day where we'll really start to get a feel for, is Chase coming back this week? Are we getting Cole Holcomb back? Are we getting Jahan Dotson back? Is Sam Cosmi going to be back at right tackle? Like these are the questions we got to ask ourselves, and we won't really know until Friday. But we'll get an inkling on Thursday, and we'll start to hear about these guys, and we'll fully turn the page on Thursday. If you're a member of the MOBB, be on the lookout for Studs and Duds. You'll be getting that tomorrow. But we'll officially turn the page to the Eagles in Monday Night Football, and it's a big one. I can't stress it enough. Looking forward to it. But in any event, Here's another super chat. Greatly appreciate you. F. Altus. I got F. Altus writes, Payne got too good to just fall off after this year. He says, real convo needs to be had soon about which DM we're going to trade. They fetch more back in the trade, and we can't break up J.A. and Deron Payne. It's scary watching them. I think that ship has sailed. We got to have those two in the middle. If you're not going to keep both of these defensive ends, to your point, trading would be the best option. I want to see what Chase Young looks like, because I'm starting, and we've talked about it tonight about allowing guys to develop. I'm starting to get a sense for what Montez Sweat is. Hell of a football player, long, active, great in the run game, damn near impossible to run against him. But I don't feel like we get enough out of him as a pass rusher. Haven't seen him develop any type of move Rolodex. It's just usually a straight bull rush. You may get a little bit of quickness, try to get inside, but a lot of how we win as a defensive line is less about us rushing one-on-one individually, more about us rushing collectively as a unit, which is fine. But there are going to be times where I just need you to beat the dude in front of you. Like against Tennessee, he took an inferior tackle and he just tossed him around like a rag doll. And that's cool when you get a dude that can't hold his weight or water and can't anchor down, and you can just toss him around like the wind's blowing. But I need, when a guy's stout in front of you, I need him to be able to use his length, his quickness, his speed, and I'm just not seeing it. And it's crazy because he's an athletic freak. There are dudes in this league that are not even close to him from an athletic standpoint that I just see, they just get it. Like Max Crosby, he just gets this shit, man. Dude is a ridiculous pass rusher. I'm watching this man do spin moves, swim moves, rips, dips, chucks, everything, bull rushes. I mean, he's got the full move Rolodex on display, and he's half the athlete of a Montez Sweat. But he knows how to rush the quarterback. That's frustrating to me. And at some point, I'm tired of talking about Tez being close and having the most quarterback hits on the team, but still only got 3 sacks on the season. At some point, you start entertaining, hey, if we got to move on from one of these dudes, might have to be him. But again, got to see what Chase Young's talking about first. You can't break the Bama wall up. I think you got to keep them together. All right. So I will see you guys tomorrow. We got Thursday night football. We'll jump into the Eagles tomorrow head first, and we'll really start to get the ball rolling on them and kind of start to talk about what it's going to take to get a victory and the importance of that football game. That's a big game, man. I've already kind of hinted at why it's a big game at the end of the show last episode, but we'll really get into it. I don't have to explain to you why this is important, but I'll do it anyway. So lots to get to. We'll have a major announcement from the Attorney General tomorrow, or today. So there will be plenty to talk about tomorrow on the show. And so I look forward to chopping it up with you guys then. But until then, I'm your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to chopping it up with you tomorrow. You know what it is. Until next time, you guys take care. God bless and good night.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.